Welcome to episode 1 of whatever this show is called. Follow me on Instagram. You know I'm always sharing these posts from Wine Enthusiast. It's like how to pair whatever with wine. And I've always said I want to make a series about pairing these wines so I can start to learn more about wine. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I am not a wine expert. I love wine and I love food. I also own a food business. So in general, anything with food and wine interests me. Also just going to talk about things that I find interesting. Today we're having a bit of a heavy meal, a bit of a heavy wine, so we're going to start with a bit of a heavy subject, trauma. I've experienced quite a lot of it. I've really committed to a lot of self-work over the years, and that the word trauma is a bit of a buzzword. I don't know that we understand it, and I think the more we talk about it, when we get curious about why we are the way we are, the better lives we can live. I think I'm like most people where perhaps we did grow up in a decent home and a decent upbringing with no real big cosmic event, yet we struggle in relationships or we struggle with money. You know, making a commitment to someone or anything is challenging. Intimacy is challenging. Addiction. Those are all things that are super real for me. And when I entered my 30s, I was just like, why? Why am I like this? Tim Fletcher talks about is complex trauma. I never really knew the definition of what that was, but when I learned about it in this podcast, it just was like, as a Latina, I know that these subjects are not talked about enough in our culture. So even if 5 people see this and I turn you on to this episode that's gonna talk about things way better than I can articulate, then I think it'll be worth it. Let's get into the food and wine pairing first. But honestly, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Also, I really don't know what to call this series. I thought of calling it Goes With because we'll be obviously talking about drinks that go with food. But then I can also just say you know what else goes good with wine and pizza? Trauma. So it can be a good little tagline. No, give me your ideas. I'm open to it all. Let's open up some wine. Okay, so according to this post by Wine Enthusiast, I'm going to just talk about the main pizzas, the ones that you see the most. Pizza with mushrooms goes good with a Pinot Noir. Black olives and onions, delish. That goes with the rosé. A classic plain pizza, which I don't really know what that means. I don't know if they just meant classic cheese. Goes with a Chianti Classico, which is actually what I have today. A sausage, peppers, and onions goes with the Longe Nebbiolo. I hope I'm saying that right. And a pepperoni goes good with a Syrah. I doubt I'm saying any of these words correctly. Please tell me how to pronounce them in the comments. I had this gluten-free Supreme pizza in my freezer, so we're actually going to use that. According to them, a pizza with a sausage, pepperoni, bell pepper situation like I have here goes better with a Nebbiolo. But when I went to the store, they didn't have any. So I got a Chianti instead. I think we can still talk about whether this goes good with a tomato-based sauce in general. We're doing a Castello di Albola. This is a $15 bottle of wine. Yum! I love a good Chianti. I haven't had it in forever. Last time I had it was at a macaroni grill when I lived in the valley. Shout out I'm 6. I could definitely see why a Chianti would be paired with a plain pizza because it is kind of medium bodied. Definitely somewhere in between a Cab and a Pinot Noir, I think. I really a Pinot Noir for me is really, really light. Maybe if I'm having more than 2 glasses, I'll have a Pinot Noir. A Cabernet, I like a really good dry Cabernet, and it's where it's really full bodied, maybe a little spicy. This Chianti is somewhere in between. So I can see why it goes with classic, but let's try with a little pizza. Okay. Here we go. By the way, you will never hear me chew. The sound of chewing to me is so vile. It's something that we've made normal on the internet that I hope they ban one day. I'm gonna mute this. Well, that's fucking delicious. Hold and breathe. Okay, so yeah. This sausage and the onions and peppers here are so flavorful that it almost buries that wine even further. So again, I do see why the Chianti would go with a classic plain. This by no means is bad. I'm gonna chow this down, okay? Next time I'll go to a different place and get a Nebbiolo and tell you guys what it is like. The only one that I had at the store at Bevmo where I just was at was $80, and I was like, okay, we're not doing that tonight. Only because I can't drink it all tonight because I have to be up at 5 a.m. I'm going to stay on this post for a couple other episodes. I really am excited to try... I love black olives and onions. I'm excited to try that with some rosé. And I was thinking it would be fun to do a white pizza with a crémence de Bourgogne. I don't fucking know. But we're going to try that one too, okay? A margarita goes good with gavi de gavi. That's kind of fun to say. If you have any classic pairings that I need to know with like beer or cocktails or anything like that, let me know. Pause this if you need to. Go get you some wine. Go get you a snack if you need to. And let's get into this episode. Like I said, this episode really changed my life because I feel like it put into words a lot of things that I wasn't able to, express before. It's hard to always find like the vocabulary to express how you feel. And this episode just explained, God, like it just explained so much of my general angst. They start the episode this way, and I thought I would say this too in case you don't go watch it, is like, I'm not doing this for you to be like, oh, okay, I had all this trauma and it's that person's fault, and now like I'm the victim. I was telling my friend this the other day, like what really sucks about being an adult is like if someone like crashes into you and breaks your leg, like yes, fuck them, that was terrible, but also like it's still your responsibility to like go to the hospital and fix your leg and heal your leg and stay off of it and get a cast and like and go to physical therapy and all that stuff. So I don't want to create a bunch of victims here, but it's really useful, I think, to understand how certain things that we've been through or maybe things that we've lacked have shaped us. So let's start. Let's literally define what trauma means.
About complex trauma. So what is it? How would we say what it is?
So trauma is so the event happens on the outside, but I can't handle it. It's too painful. It's too scary for me. So it creates this fear and stress that I don't have the tools to handle.
Okay.
And so as a result of that, since I can't fix it and resolve it, it then wounds me on the inside. And that's the trauma, is what takes place on the inside. Why we call it complex trauma. So it's really mathematical terms. So there's simple math and there's complex math. So simple is one number, complex is more than one. So simple trauma is a one event trauma, a car accident, a rape, whatever. Complex is ongoing danger. So a child's in a situation where they're in ongoing danger, so their stress system is constantly activated, like, do I fight, flight? What do I do here? I got to get out of here. I can't handle this. So that when a child lives in that environment all the time where they're constantly activated to fight, flight, but if they're too little to fight or flight, then they eventually go, oh, I'm shutting her down, freeze. I can't handle this. So they go into this dissociative, let's go into an internal world to protect ourselves and create a fantasy world because it's safe there.
I never knew the definition of complex trauma. And when I heard him say that, it made me go, oh. So a little about me. I'm an open book, so I don't really care about sharing like anything. But I also don't want like my family to just feel like I'm shitting on them. So I'm going to try to be careful, but not because I'm trying like not to share. It's just more about like, I don't want like my family to be like, dude, what the fuck? But we can talk about my dad because he's dead. So sorry, Dad. So I grew up with a alcoholic father. He died when I was 12. He was 55. So he was very young, which, dying at 55 means you were pretty rough in it. I think when he talks about like being in constant kind of stress, I was able to relate to that so much, and maybe you can too if you had a family member with an addiction, or maybe you had a parent that was always stressed or always anxious. I had that as well. A parent that like just kind of goes up and down in moods. It creates like this, like you're always walking on eggshells type feeling. In general, we put fathers on a pedestal, even though they may or may not be doing that great, especially in Hispanic culture. And then especially if they pass. But it was really hard for me. I was his only daughter. And I think he held me up I was like his little princess when he was sober, when he was feeling good. But then when he was really, really drunk, which was often, he would get really violent, and it would be really, really, really scary. I was put in safe rooms like many times. And so, yeah, was I loved? Was I cared for? Did I have, people that cared about me and worried about me? 100%. But was I also terrified at any given time of the day? Yes. And I think that, but if you're watching this and maybe you had a couple instances where there was big moments, like big blowouts in your household, and maybe you're another parent or another sibling or a caretaker is kind of like, well, it was just once, get over it. If it was just twice, get over it. I think something we need to remember is when you're young, like if that happens once, you're just terrified from that moment. You're so scared that it'll just happen again. For the first time it happens, you just like live in fear after that.
Complex trauma comes out of basically abuse or neglect. So the two extreme ends of the spectrum. So the abuse we can easily imagine, that's physical abuse, emotional abuse, that's harsh environment, violence, etc. But a lot of complex trauma comes out of neglect. And that's the other end of the spectrum where all the physical needs of the child were met, but their emotional needs weren't met. So the abuse trauma, something happens to you. Neglect trauma, something didn't happen to you that should have happened to you.
So I'm half Mexican, half Nicaraguan. But I was born and raised in South Texas, so very just Mexican culture is strong there. I love being Mexican. I love the Valley. I love where I was raised, so I'll just get that out of the way. And generations now are better, but like definitely when I was raised, there's this tendency for women a lot of the time to kind of shoot things under the rug. Complex trauma was so important for me to learn because I was loved, I was fed, I was safe, my mom did try to keep me safe. But emotionally, I don't think anyone was there or equipped to know how to handle my father. We usually always relate to trauma as this physical thing. We got in an accident, we were sexually assaulted, we were robbed, whatever. We never think about like what didn't happen and what wasn't given to us. It's so hard to put into words what you didn't know you needed. Because you just don't know what you don't know, especially as a kid.
We've broken down kind of the emotional needs that a child has. So we have a need to be, a child needs to be authentic and to connect with safe people and really be able to be vulnerable and open up and to be totally accepted for who they are. Have somebody who totally gets them and hears them and sees them and values them and nurtures them. Those are all emotional needs. But if a child grows up in a home where I'm too busy for you, or smarten up, get over it, toughen up, nobody's getting them, nobody's hearing them, or why can't you be like your brother, etc.
If you live in a Latin household, you know what that man just said. I'm sure that in many other cultures deal with this, but like it's very much like, get over it, shut up, like why are you crying? Why are you crying? I know I was definitely raised in a household where it's like if you have an emotion, it's like they're just like, what do you want? Like what?
That is emotional trauma. That's hurting the child emotionally. So the child's not feeling safe to be them. So the child then has to adapt in order to try to protect itself. So I got to be tougher. I can't be so sensitive. I got to wear this mask of being outgoing, etc. But that's also how I'm going to try to get my needs met. So maybe if I'm different, then dad will give me more attention. Then mom won't be so angry at me all the time. So they're adapting, trying to get their needs met, trying to keep safe.
And they don't even know who they are a lot of times.
And that's what happens.
They don't even really develop.
They don't have a clue who they are after a while because they're so busy trying to be something they're not to get acceptance and love. Because they know if they're authentic. So in a healthy situation of you're authentic, you connect and you're loved. In complex trauma, if you're authentic, you get rejected.
And so then you pull that authenticity back in, especially if you're really young, you don't even know, you're still learning so much about yourself or evolving. Who even knows what happens to when you redirect that river?
What this makes me think about too is like people pleasing, which I've like worked really, really hard to try to change. And it was really apparent in my last relationship where I was like, I need to do everything that this other person wants from me, because if not, I won't, be liked or loved, or, I'll be like discarded. And you just as a kid, like if you don't have these emotional needs met, I think as an adult, you then go like, oh God, like I have to be blank for me to be seen, or for me to be heard, or for me to be accepted, versus like people that have a secure attachment style go, no, this is how I am. I know that I'll be loved either way. However I am, because it's always been accepted and nurtured. It's never been like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing that? Shut up. And, it's never been judged.
So the child brain is basically what's developed is the limbic brain, which is the emotional center. So the cortex hasn't developed yet. And so it's called egocentric thinking. So everything they see through their eyes, it affects them. They caused it. Everything is related to them somehow. So if dad's too busy or mom and dad get a divorce, I must have done something wrong. It must be my fault. If I get sexually abused, I must have brought it on.
It's just something to remember, if you're raising kids now, or if you just are around kids, small kids don't know yet that they live in a world with other people. Like, their world is egocentric. Their world is just theirs. So if something bad happens, they think it's their fault.
The child just doesn't feel loved and accepted. So they don't feel safe. They don't feel they can totally relax. They have to somehow earn that connection, earn that love. And so a child...
This is the part of the episode where I was like, oh, my entire identity is literally just what he said.
It's forming how they're going to behave.
Well, exactly. So now they're going to start these behaviors to try to get attention, to try to get connection.
But is some of that natural too?
Yeah, because a child, and it's built off very natural things. So the child has a natural personality, so they can be like naturally funny, but then they can take that to just, I got to be funny all the time.
I see.
They can be naturally every child wants to please and love, but now I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to get straight A's. I'm going to do all the chores. I'm going to be a workaholic, because that's how I'll get validation and acceptance. Or I'm going to be a perfectionist. Everything's got to be perfect, or I'm going to never say no to anybody. But then I'm going to burn myself out. And I'm going to kill myself.
Actually on the phone with my mom the other day, and she was just like, oh, but you were just such a perfect kid. You were just so good, and you came out really great. Little does she know that I hate myself.
What are some symptoms of complex trauma that you can see in people?
So very common ones is that they don't know who they are because they've had to wear masks all their life, and they become people pleasers. Most have anger issues. Most have authority issues because all the authorities of their life have not been healthy. Most have some control manipulation issues that are part of that. A lot have lying issues. They lie when it would just as easy to tell the truth, but lying is what they had to do to kind of stay safe, because truth got them in trouble. There's a fear of failure, a fear of change, a fear even of success, because it's like, uh-oh, everything's going too good. The other shoe's going to drop. Something bad's going to happen. So now I better sabotage it.
Wow.
So there's it's a fear-driven thing.
One thing I noticed really recently, still unrealistic expectations of myself and other people. And I've always had them. It's like, and I realize that I think some of it is like, I want to make it so, like, if I have unrealistic expectations of myself, then I'm never going to be able to achieve them.
The bar's too high.
Right. And then I'll always be what I thought I always was anyway.
Exactly.
Which was not enough.
Like, if I had a memoir and I had a quest at the top of the book that explained how I move through life, would be exactly that. We need more wine.
You know, I heard you talk about fake intimacy once. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
What were you talking about it? I resonated with that.
So every child longs for connection.
Yeah.
We're just built. But if you can't get it, you try to connect with dad, but he's always too busy. Mom's always depressed or angry. You can't connect. So you assume it's my fault. I must be something wrong with me, but I'm still driven for connection, but I don't want deep, genuine connection now because that's always led to rejection. So let's try barroom intimacy. Let's try fake intimacy. Let's just have fun all the time and sports.
Pervert and pornography, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because it gives the feelings of connection without the true intimacy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't satisfy.
No.
But it sets up addiction. And that's where most people end up sadly straying into that fake intimacy world.
Yeah, do you think it's safe to say that complex trauma makes having a healthy relationship it's got to have a huge effect, yeah?
Yes, very much. And
impossible even? No.
Makes it almost impossible for a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So when I heard that was a really big bummer, but it's something that I've suspected, and I think it's so important to share this and talk about this, is because if you're like me and you're also single in your 30s and you can get married, I know I can go out there and just get married to a guy in a couple days if I really wanted to, but I'm finding someone that I could have a real partnership with. I don't know if it's not that I don't think I'm worthy of it, or it's not I don't think it's out there. It's just that I don't even know if I'm capable of it. That sucks, it sucks to hear, but it's not impossible. And I know it's just talking about a lot of heavy stuff, but I really do believe that no matter how heavy a situation is, you can absolutely work through it as long as two people want to. But it did validate this part of me that goes God, why do I feel I struggle more than most people to find these deep connections?
So the sex is just, or that intimate connection up top is just like a fuse kind of.
Exactly.
And then the other part is like a fire.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
But most try it with complex trauma. I just think I can live up here in the fuse.
Yeah, I'm a fuse monkey. I'm up here, yeah.
And that's going to be great. It just never satisfies.
Yeah.
I am a fuse junkie. So now that we know all of these things, how can we heal? How do we move forward?
I know what unhealthy is now. I can define it. What's healthy? I don't know what healthy. And that's where we talk about healing from complex trauma requires reparenting.
Reparenting, basically. I moved to LA when I was really young because I chose that, so I don't it's on me. But I've had to just navigate all of my adulthood basically on my own. And I needed to reparent myself. I needed to learn to give myself grace. I needed to learn when I needed a break. I needed to learn when I needed to learn about money, but also just in general, feeling secure with someone, trusting someone. There's a lot of naiveness I think I moved here with that I had to kind of reparent myself from. So you're watching this and you do feel okay, cool, I have all of these issues, I struggle with all of these things, where can I go, what do I do? I think thinking about the term and researching the term reparenting and seeing what it means to you will be a good start, because it's definitely something that I had to learn to do. I've really had to learn how to it's just this voice in my head that I've developed of when I hear myself being really mean to myself, or when I hear myself going oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, you're so stupid, why'd you do this, or whatever, it's not worth it, or just all of that noise of saying hey, how would you have known that would happen? You're doing a great job, you're doing everything you can, you did everything you could today. You are trying your best. You're tired, but you're almost there, and maybe you just need a break, but don't give up. These are all these little things that we have to kind of, we have to kind of teach ourselves to do over again as adults. And also surrounding yourself with people that do have healthy relationships with their parents or with their partners. I know that's been really healing for me. I know of a couple of couples closely that I'm like, yeah, they're good role models. Like, they love each other, they respect each other, and they're in love, but they live side by side, you know, like they're kind of going through this life together as a team, and it's unified, and they're an example of like what it means like to be in a partnership that's respectful, and where they want to see each other succeed, and even being around like your friends that have kids that are parenting, you know, their kids with a lot of empathy and a lot of attention. I'll finish with this last little clip because I thought this was important.
Is it possible for parents to do a good job? I don't want to get just stuck in this place where it's like we're just contributing to this thing in the world that everybody's damaged and that we all need help.
I think when it comes to parenting, so a couple thoughts. The danger is every parent wants to be a perfect parent, and it's really important to go, it's all about good enough parenting. Nobody's a perfect parent, but we can be good enough parents. And that means we're going to fail. We can't be Superman to our kids. We have limitations. We can't be awake 24/7, but we can be good enough. So a child needs parents who are attuned to them and who connect. Now, you don't connect 24/7 with a child, but they need a few minutes a day of just really safe connection with the parent to feel, okay, this is my rock. I'm secure. Everything's okay with the world.
I wanted to end with that because whether you are a parent now or you are reparenting yourself, he said it best when he said, good enough is good enough. You know, we aren't perfect. We have limitations. It doesn't matter how old you are, in your like parenting journey or in your reparenting journey, like you are here now, and we can't change the past, and we can't change you know, really awful circumstances that happened to us, but we can just decide here and now and every moment to be better, you know, with each choice. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. Every 5 minutes, some weeks. So yeah, I hope that from this episode you just take away maybe a little bit of introspection, and if you've been feeling kind of like, well, why am I this way, or why am I that way, or why does this thing keep happening to me in my life, and maybe it is connected to something that you're perpetuating on the inside, that maybe it gave you a little bit of insight into that or awareness into that, and that might suck to know, right? But I think that that's great because the only place to go from that is up. I don't know that we're meant to like be here and be perfect and have these perfect relationships and have these perfect lives and look perfect and all the things, but I do think that we're meant to feel true love, like true authentic connection with ourselves first and foremost, but with other people, you know, with family members and with you know, people, you know, and partners, and I think that that feeling is worth working on ourselves deeply for, and that's definitely something I'm doing for sure. So yeah, thank you for watching this episode. If you watched all the way through, please comment, tell me what you think, what you feel. Like and subscribe, share, and I'll see you next time. And if you want me to try something that goes with your favorite food or your favorite wine, and please let me know. Bye.